Good morning. My name is Marty Kaiser. I'm a real estate broker with Greater Orlando Realty in Orlando, Florida. Today is Tuesday, November 7th. As you may recall from last week's module, we had put together a program that are the most important criteria for a prospective purchaser. Last week's module was focused more on the financial aspects. That is, how to take care of your financial needs and find the best lending program, the best lenders, and basically get all the lending aspects out of the way before you get too deeply involved in finding the home of your dreams. Today's module is going to basically consist of the different criteria that we use to help establish finding you the best properties that's going to meet all your various criteria. How do we break down the criteria? Well, there's a few things that are very important to most of my customers. One thing would be, for example, how far a commute do you want to work, assuming that you're working? Secondly would be, if you have school-age children, making sure that we find schools that are well regarded, that meet your children's criteria. The third thing may be finding neighborhoods that have a good reputation, that you're comfortable in terms of the reputation of the neighborhood. And lastly, if a place of worship is an important criteria, determining how close by your religious affiliation would be relative to the property. So all those things are important when we start our process. Once we've established those criteria, of course we need to know your budget, that is, what's your price range. And once we've established the price range, probably the other very important criteria are, what are your actual tastes and needs? And what I mean by that is, how many bedrooms and baths do you require? Would you prefer a 1 or a 2-story home? Do you have a preference as to the age of home? For example, do you want homes built after 2000? Whatever criteria you have. Many consumers will say they want a house at least 2,000 square feet of living area, possibly a 2-car garage. And then what improvements are crucial to you? Many people may say they need granite countertops, they need hardwood floors, or things of that nature. Do you need an in-ground pool? So we try to establish all the things that are must-haves for a consumer. Once we've established that, then it's really a question of us getting to work. At the same time, when we've established the consumer's criteria specifications, we try to let them know if all their requirements are realistic within their budget. Hopefully they will be, but sometimes they may have a wish list that exceeds their budget. So that's when we need to have a frank conversation with them and kind of explain that you're either going to need to raise your budget or possibly lessen your requirements a little bit. But it's really important that we have a clear understanding of what the consumer expects. At the same time, we want to make sure that we can satisfy their requirements. So we always highly encourage people to ask us questions. Once we've established this, then we actually go into the process a little bit more. Like what's actually involved in searching for homes, how we go about determining if it's an owner-occupied, if it's a vacant home. And then there's 4 different types of homes that they could possibly purchase. One category would be new homes. Everybody likes new homes, and if the consumer is interested in a new home, we give them some education on what builders are building and what locations and what price ranges. We also give them our opinion as to what builders we feel may build a little bit better product and a little bit better value. Now for some people, new homes are a great option, but at the same time they need to be aware that a new home is typically going to run 10 to 15% more than a resale home. So that may affect what a consumer looks at. If we look at the resale criteria, we have 3 categories of homes. We have what we call the traditional listing, where it's a nice normal home that the seller's hired a realtor and there's no unusual circumstances. The second criteria would be a bank-owned or foreclosure. That is a home, unfortunately, that the banks had to take back from the seller, and now the bank is actually the seller. Now, bank owns have a lot of different nuances involved. For some people, they're great options, for other people, not. But we explain the pros and cons of bank owns. And the third criteria would be short sales. A short sale would be, for lack of a better term, a seller that's underwater. What does that mean? That means that they're selling a home for less than they actually owe the bank. So when that situation occurs, not only do we have to negotiate an agreement between the buyer and seller, but once that is executed, then we have to forward the whole contract and the affiliated paperwork to the seller's bank. Once that occurs, it's a slow, time-consuming process. The seller's bank is going to ask the seller for a lot of information, and then it's a fairly time-consuming process in the seller's bank making a decision whether they're going to agree to that contract. This typically can take anywhere from 3 to 4 months, and there's no guarantee the bank is going to accept that offer. So it's important that the buyer understand that and is in a position to be patient. Frequently, buyers are not in a position they can be that patient. That's why frequently investors typically are the biggest purchasers of short sales. So that's just giving you a little bit of an overview on some of the criteria and questions that we like to ascertain. These things are all done with 3 objectives. Number 1, we want to find the buyer the best value, meeting as many of the buyer's criteria as we can. Secondly, we want to make this process as efficient and expeditious as we can. And lastly, we want to make this we want to put the least amount of stress on the buyer. We want to prepare the buyer for the different things that take place in the process. Hopefully these 2 parts have given you a little bit of insight into the process. I hope it's been informative, and I look forward to having the opportunity to speak with many of you in the future. Have a great day and week, and we look forward to speaking with you next week.